we talked about I mentioned increasing urbanization. As we shift from rural to urban areas, the most urbanized regions include North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean and Europe, and Oceania. And that urbanization could add another 2.5 billion people to urban areas by the year 2050, with approximately 90% of that increase expected to occur in Asia and Africa. So we're expecting these big increases in world population, but they're going to be highly concentrated in just a few countries: India, China, and Nigeria. Just last week, India surpassed China as the most populous country on the planet, with well over 1 billion people, right? And so countries are going to face challenges in meeting the housing, transportation, energy systems, and other infrastructure needs of these growing urban populations. And all of those areas intersect with how we manage our GHG emissions. According to the National Intelligence Council in the US, with a projected population of 8.3 billion people in the year 2030, the world's going to need 50% more energy, 40% more water, and 35% more food than it currently has. Let's put that into context. Think about how much the emissions of that energy, water, and food is already generating and putting up into the atmosphere. So not only do we need to reduce our footprint, we actually have to increase our productivity. So we have to figure out how to reduce those emissions while increasing our productivity, which is a completely different conversation than going zero emissions while keeping your productivity static. Of course, we've got these big demographic shifts taking place around the world. Our population is growing. It's also getting older. By 2050, people 60 years old and older will comprise about 1/5 of the world's population. In 1950, it was only 8%. So Europe and Asia are already dealing with challenges in supporting and caring for an aging population, which is why you see things like France announcing that they were going to have to raise their retirement age, right? The population is getting older and they're having to adapt to deal with that. And that global shift in age is going to also have its own societal and economic changes that influence the water, energy, food nexus as well. Now, our global economic powers have shifted. The world economy is going to more than double in size by the year 2050, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is far outstripping population growth, right? You think about population is not going to double by 2050. It might be going up, 10, 15, 20%. And that's because we're getting this rapid advance of technology, and we're also getting these massive advances in productivity in emerging markets, right? So we're going to see countries like China, India, Brazil, Russia, Indonesia, Mexico, and Turkey growing twice as fast as countries like the US, Japan, Germany, and the UK. And that's going to result as those countries are transitioning from centers of labor and production to consumption-oriented economies. As Tom Friedman, the author, would say, everybody in the world wants to be American, not in our politics or in our culture, but quite simply in our consumption, right? As we look at technology, geospatial modeling has advanced rapidly. We've got more widely available data and decision-making tools for people around the world. Battery development, manufacturing supply chains are changing rapidly as battery storage capacity is evolving. We're going to need substantially greater breakthroughs to solve longer-term grid decarbonization. And in particular, some of the areas that we need to get that we're going to have to deal with are like intermittency and seasonal weather variations in regions and the intersection of that with renewable energy usage. And then we're also getting a better understanding of methane emissions, which is one of our great concerns amongst the more potent GHGs. And for the natural gas industry to be more sustainable, we're going to need to make progress with abating methane and developing alternative gases like biomethane and low carbon hydrogen, and using technologies like carbon capture and sequestration. Now, climate change, of course, is the one that we're focused on, and it also has really substantial impacts on that nexus, which is why the World Economic Forum has been so focused on this going back for well more than a decade. Interestingly, the World Economic Forum has had its own energy, water, food nexus initiative as well. But every year, the World Economic Forum, which is a who's who of major economists and CEOs and national business leaders, they do a survey of those folks and ask them, what are the greatest concerns you have in terms of global economic impacts and risks? And if you go back 10 years ago, none of those risks would have been climate related. They would have been like war and cybersecurity and things like that. Now, as they look forward, 3 of the top 5 every year are climate related. And as they look in long-term perspectives, as you ask them about what's the economy, what risks are the economy going to face in the next 10 years, 4 of the top 10 risks are climate related. 4 of the top 5 risks, the top 4 and 5 of the top 6 are climate related. Even in short-term perspective, over the next 2 years, 4 of the top 7 are climate related from their perspective. So even the World Economic Forum is recognizing that climate change is posing really substantial risks here. And so as we start to think about visualizing the future, we need to be able to show what that water energy nexus is going to look like, and better think through what that shift is going to mean for where people are going to be and what they're going to need.